This is Land of Havilah, Daniel 3. It's the story of Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, and the fiery furnace. Verse 1. Nebuchadnezzar the king made an image of gold whose height was 60 cubits and its width 6 cubits. He set it up in the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. Then Nebuchadnezzar the king sent to gather together the local governors, the deputies and the governors, the judges, the treasurers, the counselors, the sheriffs, and all the rulers of the provinces, to come to the dedication of the image which Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. Then the local governors, the deputies and the governors, the judges, the treasurers, the counselors, the sheriffs, and all the rulers of the provinces were gathered together to the dedication of the image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up, and they stood before the image that Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Then the herald cried aloud, "To you it is commanded, peoples, nations, and languages, that whenever you hear the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipe, and all kinds of music, you fall down and worship the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king has set up. Whoever doesn't fall down and worship shall be cast into the middle of a burning fiery furnace the same hour." Therefore, at that time, when all the peoples heard the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipe, and all kinds of music, all the peoples, the nations, and the languages fell down and worshiped the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. Comment in verse 1, Nebuchadnezzar constructed an image 90 feet tall and 9 feet wide. It was an idol because the point was to worship it. It was either pure gold or gold-plated. If it was pure, it would have been $680 billion worth at today's prices. In verse 2, Nebuchadnezzar sent for officials of his government to attend the idol's dedication. Many nations and languages were represented in verse 7, including all the rulers of the provinces, end quote. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego ruled over the province of Babylon in the last chapter. In verses 3 and 6, the officials gathered on the day of dedication, stood before the idol, and the herald cried out his instructions. They should fall down and worship the idol at the sound of the musical instruments, and if not, they'd be cast into a fiery furnace in the same hour. The people of the time truly believed in their gods and feared them. Nebuchadnezzar's name means Nabu, protect my oldest son, or Nabu, protect my heir, with Nabu being one of their gods. So the gods were important to them, and bowing to the image was a matter of this particular god either favoring them or not, or being angry with them or not. And if they wouldn't bow, it was a personal threat to Nebuchadnezzar. Verse 8. Therefore, at that time, certain Chaldeans came near and brought accusation against the Jews. They answered Nebuchadnezzar the king, "O king, live forever. You, O king, have made a decree that every man that hears the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipe, and all kinds of music shall fall down and worship the golden image, and whoever doesn't fall down and worship shall be cast into the middle of a burning fiery furnace. There are certain Jews whom you have appointed over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men, O king, have not respected you. They don't serve your gods and don't worship the golden image which you have set up." Comment in verse 8, certain Chaldeans brought accusation against the Jews, end quote. Since Jews in general might not bow, the accusation had the potential of inflaming persecution against all Jews. About that word Chaldean, they were a group of the wise men in chapter 2, but usually that word applies to the ethnic group that lived in the local area, and it's the name of their language. They were Chaldeans and spoke Chaldean. Nebuchadnezzar's own ethnic background isn't clear, but he could well have been Chaldean himself. The Chaldeans were so much in the forefront of the kingdom that the words Babylonian and Chaldean are somewhat interchangeable. In verses 8 and 12, when it says certain Chaldeans approached the king, the significance is that the accusers were of the dominant ethnic group. They probably had more devotion to this particular god than many of the foreigners, and more zeal to make sure he was worshipped, and more outrage if he wasn't. Plus, Daniel and his friends were now in very high positions, and the Chaldeans were most likely jealous. We don't know where Daniel was through all this. His name doesn't appear in this chapter, but since the Chaldeans say his 3 friends don't serve Nebuchadnezzar's gods or worship the golden image, verse 13. Then Nebuchadnezzar, in rage and fury, commanded that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego be brought. Then these men were brought before the king. Nebuchadnezzar answered them, "Is it on purpose, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you don't serve my God, nor worship the golden image which I have set up? Now if you're ready whenever you hear the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipe, and all kinds of music, to fall down and worship the image which I have made, good. But if you don't worship, you shall be cast the same hour into the middle of a burning fiery furnace. Who is that God who will deliver you out of my hands?" Comment: in the last chapter, Nebuchadnezzar told Daniel, "Of a truth, your God is the God of gods and the Lord of kings." But Nebuchadnezzar's polytheistic roots run deep. Now he says, "Who is that God that will deliver you out of my hands?" And he seems to have forgotten about Daniel's God. Verse 16. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered the king, "Nebuchadnezzar, we have no need to answer you in this matter. If it happens, our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of your hand, O king. But if not, let it be known to you, O king, that we will not serve your gods or worship the golden image which you have set up." Comment: in verse 16, the three said, "We have no need to answer you in this matter." End quote. What a highly insulting and audacious thing to say to the king when he was already furious. But it's true, believers have no need to answer their critics, in the sense that they don't need any favors from their critics. God's our defender and opens and closes doors for us, no matter who's for us or against us. In verse 18, bottom line, just let it be known to you, O king, that we'll not serve your gods or worship the golden image you've set up. To the Lord's ear, that was refreshingly straightforward and plain and fearless. But as for Nebuchadnezzar, verse 19, then Nebuchadnezzar was full of fury, and the form of his appearance was changed against Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He spoke and commanded that they should heat the furnace 7 times more than it was usually heated. He commanded certain mighty men who were in his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and to cast them into the burning fiery furnace. Then these men were bound in their pants, their tunics, and their mantles, and their other clothes, and were cast into the middle of the burning fiery furnace. Therefore, because the king's commandment was urgent and the furnace exceeding hot, the flame of the fire killed those men who took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These 3 men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell down into the middle of the burning fiery furnace. Then Nebuchadnezzar the king was astonished and rose up in haste. He spoke and said to his counselors, "Didn't we cast 3 men bound into the middle of the fire?" They answered the king, "True, O king." He answered, "Look, I see 4 men loose, walking in the middle of the fire, and they are unharmed, and the appearance of the 4th is like a son of the gods." Comment: in verses 17 and 18, the 3 said, in effect, God's able to deliver us, and he will, but even if he intends to kill us, we still won't worship your gods or the golden image. So they thought they would be delivered, but they were ready not to be. In verse 25, the king said, "Didn't we put 3 men in the furnace? Then why do I see 4 men walking loose in the middle of the fire unharmed, and the 4th looks like a son of the gods?" The concept of walking in the middle of the fire unharmed is a good thing to keep in mind. Verse 26. Then Nebuchadnezzar came near to the mouth of the burning fiery furnace. He spoke and said, "Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, you servants of the Most High God, come out and come here." Then Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came out of the middle of the fire. The local governors, the deputies and the governors, and the king's counselors, being gathered together, saw these men, that the fire had no power on their bodies. The hair of their head wasn't singed, their pants weren't changed, the smell of fire wasn't even on them. Nebuchadnezzar spoke and said, "Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel and delivered his servants who trusted in him, and have changed the king's word, and have yielded their bodies, that they might not serve nor worship any god except their own God." Comment: every facet of Nebuchadnezzar's statement hits home. Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel and delivered his servant who trusted him, and have changed the king's word, which means they didn't pay any attention to the king, and have yielded their bodies, that they might not serve nor worship any god except their own God. In Revelation 12:11, quote, "They overcame by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, and they did not love their lives to the death." End quote. Verse 29. "Therefore I make a decree that every people, nation, and language which speak anything evil against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego shall be cut in pieces, and their houses shall be made a dunghill, because there is no other God who's able to deliver like this." Then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon. Comment: as of now, Nebuchadnezzar has seen some proofs of the God of the Jews. Daniel revealed Nebuchadnezzar's dream to him in the last chapter, whereupon Nebuchadnezzar confessed that Daniel's God was the God of gods and Lord of kings. And after this affair with the furnace, he calls God the Most High God, and he says there's no other God who's able to deliver like this. Coming in the next chapter, God will hold him accountable for what he knows. Daniel 4 is next.